In this video, you will learn how to sync your database from a remote machine to your local machine like that.
Wow!
Ahoy cypherpunks, and welcome back to episode 11 of building our OpenSource-Odyssey website. In this video, we will be writing a script to sync the database from our production machine to our local database machine. And this will help us work with the data that we are maintaining on production. As you saw in the last video, I added all of the episodes that we have so far to the database. And now to develop on local, it would be nice to have all of that same data available. But of course, I don't want to do the work twice that I did in the last video. So the easiest way to achieve this is by syncing the remote database. We will be using mongoDump, mongoRestore, and rsync. mongoDump and mongoRestore are basic Mongo utilities on the command line, and rsync is our best friend when we want to copy data around from one machine to another machine or from one directory to another. Here is a very simple graph of how this will work. So we have our local server. This is the machine that is behind the WireGuard reverse proxy, so a machine controlled by us. And now this local server is running mongoDB as a systemctl service, and we want to have all of that data on our development machine where mongoDB is also running as a systemctl service. So how this will go is we will, from the dev machine, execute the script. The dev machine has an SSH connection to the local server, and so we can execute commands on the local server, something like mongoDump to dump all of the data that is in our Mongo database to a zip file, and then we will sync that zip file over to our development machine. On the development machine, we will then trigger the mongoRestore, so we will restore our local database based on the data in the zip file, and this way we have our sync. We will also sync the public directory, so if we are uploading any images, they will come along with this as well. And we will also clean up after ourselves, because when we are dumping on the local server, we are actually writing to a temporary directory. And of course, we don't want to weigh down storage of the local server, so we will remove this after the fact. And the approach we'll be using is a very engineering-focused duct tape approach. So we will be using basic commands that we all know.
Yes, science!
However, we will write them in a bash script. So they will be executed one by one, and it's going to save us a lot of time because we don't have to remember 15 commands. We just have to remember one command to actually sync the data. Great. I have done a little preparation for this video. So here I am in the script already. Actually, let's move this to a better location. So how will I do this? Split vertically. Then here I'll go into the source folder. I'll create a new folder called scripts. And in the scripts folder, we will move the sync Mongo remote to local sh. So let's take a look into this script. At the top, we have a bunch of variables that we will need to set. These are instructing our script on where to find what, and it's also making our script reusable. So if you have another project that is also using mongoDB on the server, you can reuse this script, which is great. Before we fill this out though, let's quickly go through the entire thing here. So first we make a reference to the current timestamp. So this is just a reference for us, so we can, for example, name our dump file with the timestamp in the file name. So here we are constructing a path with some variables that we have up here. We will say, okay, go to the dump directory, which is the temp mongoDump. Then we will have the name of the remote database, which is currently still empty, and we'll have the timestamp. So if we run the script multiple times in a row, we will always get fresh data. Then we have a simple echo command to tell us, okay, now we are starting the work. And here the magic begins. We have the SSH command, and we SSH into the remote machine. And then with the quote string, we say this command here should be run on the remote machine. We will run a mongoDump where we are substituting the name of the remote database. the host of the remote database, and the file name that we constructed in the earlier step. So we are saying, hey, dump this database to this file, please, on the remote machine. Then we do a little check if the dump was successful or not. And if it's not successful, we want to immediately exit the script. However, if we are successful, we jump to step 2, where we are syncing the dump file from the remote machine to our local. This is done with this command right here. And these flags for rsync, I can highly advise that you learn them a little bit because they're really instructive.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
What you can use, for example, to learn about how to use rsync, of course, you can do an internet search, but you can also use TLDR, so TLDR. This will give you an abbreviated summary of the man page, and the options are very nicely described. So, for example, the -- progress will give us human readable progress. -A is for archiving, so this one, and so on and so forth. Great. And with this command, we will sync it to our temp mongodump on the local machine. Again, a safety check if everything was successful. And then we move on to step 3, which is we want to restore on the local machine the database that we just synced. So now we don't have an SSH command here at the beginning. We just want to say mongo restore to our local database name. And here is where you can find the backup file. And we want to drop everything that's currently in our local database because local state does not matter. We will always take what is upstream on production. Another safety check. And finally, we'll do our cleanup where on the remote machine again, we will remove the dump file. And finally here, we are syncing the remote public directory. So whatever our local server has in the public directory, we want to sync to our local public directory. And that is the script. So it's very basic. I know it looks a little bit complicated. And in all honesty, I have to admit that this was written by ChatGPT. But I think for tasks like this, like writing bash script, ChatGPT is actually pretty useful. So now let's fill out our configuration file to have all of the right things. And for this, I'm going to open my env file on my local machine to get, for example, the name of the database right here. So this is OpenSource-Odyssey website. And this would be the local database name to restore as well as the remote database name. I've kept them the same. Our database host is localhost because here we are accessing our database on the same system that we are executing the web app from. If you were using a hosted database, of course, this would not be localhost, but actually the IP address, I guess, of your remote database location. And then we want to have the remote public directory. So this will be home OpenSource-Odyssey. That's the name of my user on the local server running the website project. Then we'll have the OpenSource-Odyssey website. And finally, we'll go into the public folder here. And Nook server, that's the SSH alias of my local server where the web app is running. All right, so this is looking good. I think the script is fine, but we want to have a very nice way of executing it. So let's come into our package.json and create a new script where we can just call pn, for example, sync remote, and it will sync the database. So we'll add another option down below here and we'll call it sync with a colon remote. Actually, let's get this a new line here. Now what do we need to execute? Let's take a look into our folder structure. So we have our source folder, the scripts folder that we just created, and inside of here we have the sync mongo remote to local sh script. And so we need to execute an sh script. And we do this with calling sh and then providing the file path to the script. So this would be source scripts sync mongo remote to local sh. Give this a save. And now when I come into my console, go into the project directory, I should be able to say pn sync remote, and let's see what this will do. All right, so apparently we are missing the mongodump command on our remote machine Let's just quickly check this out. SSH into the Nook server. And now let's do mongodump with a version. And here we can see, okay, mongodump is not installed currently, so our script fails. So I will skip ahead and install mongodump on our remote machine. All right, I'm back. I have installed mongodump on our remote machine, and now we should be good to go to give this another try. So here I am back in my local machine, and let's try to execute the pn sync remote command again. And there we can see that something did actually happen. We have a remote dump that was created, so this is successful. However, rsync is not quite successful yet. Let's see where this is failing. So we get a permission denied error here because apparently we cannot write to this directory. So the issue is actually not with my remote machine, but with my local machine. I am using this same approach for all of my web projects, and therefore the temp mongodump folder is already created and owned by a different user. So let's just substitute this OpenSource-Odyssey, OSO. All right, let's try this again. Sync remote. So this is looking much better. Here we are getting an output. We can see 149 documents were successfully restored on our local machine. And now we are syncing the public folder where we are getting the media files. And this is all looking very good. Now the script has finished running. So now what we should be able to do is bring up our local development server, and it should look the same as our remote website. Let's go to localhost 3000. And indeed, we do see all of the same content. Let's check our videos quickly. All right, so the images seem to be broken somehow. Interesting, we'll have to look into this. Nevertheless, the content itself is there. So let's check out what's the issue with the images. First, do we get an indicator here in the console? Let's make this a little bit smaller so I can actually read it. So here we cannot get the media file apparently. Did it sync to a wrong location? Let's go to the Git. And we get a public situation here. So we did sync the public folder, but it's nested inside another public folder. Here we have public, and then we have public once more. This should of course not be the case. And the issue here is actually pretty simple and tricky. All I did forget was a little trailing slash here at the end. And now let's try this again. I will remove the public folder. Let's bring up the console again, make this a little bit bigger, run our sync command again. And the little trailing slash with rsync, it's very particular about how it wants the file path to look. If we have the trailing slash, we are indicating, okay, this is a directory. So actually just look at the content of the directory instead of syncing the entire directory. So now let's check again. We don't have any updates in our Git history. And when we check the media location now, here we can see that all of the images are there. That should be there. And now when we bring up the development machine again, let's give it a refresh. There we go. So now we are in a great position. Whenever I'm adding content on the production website, we can just sync it to our local. Whoa, what's happening here? Was this image just slow to load? Yeah, it looks like this. Okay. So now whenever I update the website, we can just sync it to the local machine, and then we can always work with the content that is actually the real content, and we don't have to mock the content, which is just great. So finally, let's do a little update here. So we added the sync remote short script command. We added the script itself, and I also updated the README. And let's give this a commit. Thank you so much for watching this video, everybody. I hope you learned something. The content that you learned in this video, especially this sync script here, is immensely valuable because you can use it in all kinds of different projects. Whenever you have a database on a remote machine and you want to get the contents to your local machine, you can use this approach. It's a little bit hacky and duct tapey, but hey, it gets the job done, and we did all of this in very little time. So I think it's a great approach.
Gang, gang.
Leave a comment below the video if you like this, if you want to see something else, if you have some ideas. You can also, of course, always use the website with the contact form. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.